So we're going to talk about the tech bros. One thing that we are up against is the tech bros, the new oligarchy, the broligarchy it's called, because they're all men. They're all men. They are a handful of men who own and control the technology that we all rely on. That's what the oligarchy is. Authority in the hands of a very, very few people. That's what feudalism is. Authority and resources in the hands of a very, very few people. And the tech space, the technology that we work with every day, that we require, that we need every day to run our lives, is held by just this small handful of men. My washing machine, I bought a new washing machine 2 years ago. Yeah, a couple of years ago. And now, to my mind, washing machine is you put your clothes in, you turn a couple, you put in your detergent, you turn the knobs, you let it run, you let it do what it has to do. This one had a function for me to be able to put the stuff in and then program it from my phone, whether I'm somewhere, for it to do its washing at a time. I don't do I need this? But we don't need it. We really don't need. You don't need to have a washing machine that you program so that when you're back for. No, you don't need that. But we are led to believe that we need these things, and they've done this. This system has brought us to this point where we are fully believing that we need these things. And so technology permeates every aspect of our lives, even the washing of our clothes. Technology permeates every single aspect of our lives, and that power is held by very few people, and it's used against us in many ways. We have so little power where this is concerned. If you've ever had a problem with an Instagram post or TikTok or and you've not been able to find anyone, I see on in social media every day somebody got shut down, somebody's information is not being pushed out, somebody has been suspended for using language, for example, and talking about things that we talk about in our normal everyday, things that are happening in the world, but resistance to some of these things is being shut down by these men who have the power to do that. And when we don't have language, back to my point about clarity in communication and the ability to speak clearly and freely to one another, what's happening in tech feudalism, what's happening is that the oligarchs are controlling what we get to talk about amongst ourselves, and even further, how we get to talk about it. Because of course we can talk about everything pretty much, but we have to be careful with our language. You can't use certain words. So I see people online using grape for rape. And I posted once, so now what do I say when I want to talk about grapes? Is it going to be that when I speak about grape, it's going to be interpreted to mean that it's going to be shut down? That kind of power to control and condition our minds is something we thought we had gone past. We're back in it. And that's what Varoufakis says. We are back in this tech feudalism. It's not just feudalism, it's a technological feudalism that owns and controls us in pretty much every aspect of our lives. And is hurting women, harming women in ways that just not so long ago would have been unimaginable, because online violence is escalating, and we've seen them. We see the chat rooms. They're everywhere. Tens of thousands of men who get together to talk about how to harm women. That would not have been possible 10 years ago, 20 years ago, not at all possible. But now they can cross borders. And the other important thing about this is that, in fact, what we're up against is a world where these men, the system is so widespread that men all around the world, in every country or any country in the world, are able to come together and do this and to contribute their resources. So, for example, millions of dollars have been spent from the United States into Europe and England and so on, to support this push against women, to support men like Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson and people like that, who want women out of public spaces, who want to go back to a time when men rule, and not just men, white men rule the world. And everybody else just follows along. Everybody else is owned and controlled by these. The system is set up that way. The imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy. That's what we're up against. This system. That's the what. The when. When is right now. Now, today, right now. When is yesterday, actually. With urgency, with extreme urgency. Because the system is functioning so efficiently, and it's so deep in all our lives. And like I said a moment ago, these men are collaborating across borders in ways that would not have been possible not so long ago. They are investing millions of dollars. They're investing large amounts of resources of all kinds, extremely large amounts of resources of all kinds, to recreate this world that they think should be owned and run by men, more specifically by white men, but in which all women are subject to this group of men. It's not tomorrow. It's not next week. It's not next year. It's today. The work needs to be done because it is needed right now. So when is right now? Where is everywhere? Again, men are working across borders. Everywhere. Everywhere. In the United States, in England, in Russia, in Italy, in China, in Afghanistan. As a matter of fact, some days I think of the United States and how the last century, the United States was the place that everybody looked to around the world, because women, especially women and black people, were fighting for civil rights and women's rights, women's liberation. And people they looked to the successes of these two groups. Now, all that is being rolled back, in the United States. Again, it's beginning here. The crux of what's going on in the world, the starting point, the originator is the United States, and it's spreading around the world. And what we get to do at the power table is resist that. We come back to that. We get to resist that. We get to resist that with who we are, how we walk in the world, how we engage with this system. And it's important to keep in mind that there are people watching all the time. So it's not just what we do, it's what we inspire people to do, which is why I'm doing the power table. I'm inviting people to learn what I was taught, to teach it to others, to use what they have learned from me and whoever else, and teach it to others. And I do a lot of work with young women, and it's amazing how, I can think, for example, of instances in my life as a child where I learned something. I can remember right now something I learned from a woman who was not my mother, an adult who's not my father. And sometimes you just thought that it just happened in passing, you notice it, and it sticks with you, and it changes you. It adds to your store of information, to your vocabulary. So people are always watching. Children are impressionable. I want to suggest to you that adults are also impressionable. Because what we get to do is to exercise the courage that encourages others. Exercise the courage that allows other people, that supports other people, that inspires other people to use their courage too. And I suggest to you that adults are also quite impressionable. And they do what they see other adults do. Now, the why we do this work, and the why we need to look at this particular issue as it's unfolding in our world right now, is because it's a matter of survival. It's a question of women's survival, women's physical survival, as a matter of fact, but also the survival of women's autonomy, the survival of women's agency, the survival of women's personhood. The goal of the patriarchy is to reduce women to utilitarian purposes. We are here to fulfill the needs of the patriarchy, the requirements to service the patriarchy, to serve and service the patriarchy. That's what the patriarchy thinks. So the survival that we're talking about is the survival of the idea that women are competent and capable, at least as much as men are. Quite frankly, women could not possibly be worse than men. So we are talking about the survival, the system right now is talking about the survival of white men and the white race. We are talking about the survival of the species, and within that, the survival of our capabilities, the survival of our opportunity to participate, the survival of our rights, the survival of this time in which we are still able, in many ways, fortunately, to participate, to contribute, to use these gifts and talents and resources that we were born with and that we've acquired along the way. So the survival, like the other things, is manifold. It's not just one thing. The how we do that is what we'll talk about we begin talking about in detail in the next session, second session. We talk about archetypes. And archetypes, again, we're not talking about individuals, we're talking about how we need to be, how we are within the patriarchy, recognize how we operate within the patriarchy, recognize how we ought not, what we must do to not contribute to it. And so we're going to look at the general ideas, the overarching ideas of how the patriarchy categorizes and uses women. And so that question about whether we are all tradwives to some degree gets back to here, because the overarching idea is that we all be tradwives. As I've been working with this idea of archetypes within the patriarchy, I've come to think of tradwifery as the overarching archetype. Patriarchy wants a system that supports it. We want a system that erases the patriarchy. We don't want to fix the patriarchy. It's not possible. We want a different system. We want matriarchy, because matriarchy supports everyone. Patriarchy supports men and only a handful of men. And the thing about men, the thing that men don't seem to understand is the patriarchy harms them as much as it harms women. It does it in different ways, but it is equally harmful to them. Patriarchy supports everyone and supports the world that we live in that men are destroying. And so the system, I've come to be thinking, and I'm going to elaborate on this as I go along, and it's part of my book. Patriarchy has created this other system that is pulling women into. So we have the matriarchy, and patriarchy is smart enough to recognize that what it needs to support it is not individual women, but a system made up of women. And the system that women have, the matriarchy, does not do that. So it is creating another system, the tradwifery system. Because tradwifery is not just, it is literally not only about being home, cooking and baking and making and looking after children and the man of the house. That's not all there is to it. There's a lot more to being a tradwife. It is supporting men at work, because women are still going to be working, because men are still going to need, they're still going to want the secretaries and the nurses and the caretakers. What they've done, however, you've seen that in the United States, they have changed the rules so that a lot of those woman-centered professions are now no longer professions. So nursing is no longer a profession. It's something you do. Counseling is no longer a profession, no longer a professional. So you no longer have that. So we are being reduced in the work. We're going to be allowed in the workspace because men know they can't do that alone. We are being reduced in the workspace, and same we're being reduced at home. We are going to be helpers and workers in the work world, like we are at home, with no authority, no power, not sitting in the C-suite, not getting the corner office. No, 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 no. We're going to be taking orders from men and doing what men say, when, where, why, and how, protecting and supporting them. In my book, The Women the Patriarchy Co-opted, I speak of some of those, the enforcer, the enabler, who enforce the rules of the patriarchy, women who enforce the rules of the patriarchy, who enable the patriarchy, who protect the patriarchy. The wife, for example, in my book, I call her the consort. Her job is to support and protect her husband. And the high-powered men, their wives are visible and in support. They protect him, make him look good. So the roles for women, the tradwifery roles for women are not confined. They're not restricted to the home. I want us to make that point. I want us to understand that. So when we meet next time, in session 2, and we're talking about the archetypes, we're going to delve into tradwifery as the overarching, the arch, the super archetype, I think I call it. The super archetype and how that functions. Yes? So I'm looking forward to session 2, where we will discuss tradwifery as the arch archetype, as the super archetype, the new system that patriarchy is putting in to support it, so that it can further reduce the power, the likelihood that the matriarchy will reassert herself. See you in session 2.